you where you are. So God, thank you so much that we get to sit in this room this morning, Father. Bless your sons and your daughters, I pray, and do what only you can do. It's in your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Well, it is my privilege to introduce to you our guest speaker this morning, a young man that I've known for a very long time. He was at first a twinkle in his daddy's eye. I can confirm that to be true. And I remember his first breath. I remember his first diaper. It was terrifying. As I'm sure his last one was as well, however many years later that was. It's interesting, being a pastor's son in a small town can have its challenges. And you're raised in a minister's home, mom or dad was a minister. Yeah, there's challenges attached to that. It's different. There was not a week that went by in high school that there wasn't somebody that said, oh, you go to that cult across the street, your dad's a cult leader, etc. Never got into a single fight with any of those jugheads. He's able to take a blow better than any man I've ever seen in my life. He has a tremendous heart. He's not a sheep. He's not a wolf. He's a sheepdog. We were in a restaurant several years ago, and I was trying to explain to him that he was different from other men and that he was a very protective person. And he said, I don't understand. I think I'm just normal. And I said, okay, we're in a restaurant. And I said, all of a sudden, shots ring out on the other side of the restaurant. JD, what do you do? He goes, well, I don't have a weapon, so I got to figure out some way to get behind him. I got to get people out the window. I said, okay, you just answered my question. Everybody else is jumping out the window. You just ran towards the guy with the gun. You're a sheepdog. And sheepdogs are rare critters. He's a defender. He's a lover. He's a good soul. And he's my son. And his mother and I are like stupid proud of him and the young man that he's become. I want you to know something. He's not speaking today because his last name is Wiegand. He's speaking today because last fall we went on a leadership retreat, and I asked him to talk about his heart for the lost. And by the time he was done, our staff was done. A new season of evangelism, a fresh understanding of how to reach people that just don't know Christ. They're good people. They just don't know Jesus. And so would you welcome this young man. This is my beloved son, with whom I am well pleased. Would you welcome J.D. Wiegand?
Another obligatory hug. My mic was on for that, wasn't it? Thank you for whoever did the dog chant. Jake, I got you. So I did this first service, and I think I'm going to do it again second service. But how many of you guys know that someone doesn't become who they are unless they have major influences? So if it's okay with you guys, I'm going to go ahead and label off a few people in my life that I wouldn't be standing here without. And first of all, that is Brett Carlton. He was in here first service. He's our junior high pastor. He was the first best friend I ever had, and he also continues to be that best friend to this day. I know a lot of people don't have that luxury, but for me, Brett Carlton was always someone who I could rely on any given situation. He'd stay up with me until 3 o'clock in the morning, talking to me about, girls or fears or crying or anything along those lines, and I really owe him a lot for my junior high years. Next, I have Pastor Jason, who is our FCMA director and used to be our entirely big youth pastor, and he still is, I guess, but yeah. And so he kicked me around on more than one occasion. You know how there's always like lists that people make of 5 most loved and 5 most hated people? That man is number 2 on both of my lists. I don't know how it happened, but I hate him for all the same reasons that I love him, and that guy has turned me into the workhorse that I am today. Next is Pastor Ryan. He was here first service. He had to take off for second service, but he was my boss for 4 years. He's made me cry more than any of my other bosses have. At one point, he took me into the back room, stopped band practice, and made all of them come in and make fun of the project I had just done for 10 minutes. And I became a creative person because of that. I owe him a lot for what I've become. And lastly, but most certainly not least, I started crying at this point during first service. It's not going to happen second service. The 2 people right there, my mom and dad, have been with me through everything. From, like you said, my first breath to this point. They have stayed with me. They've gone to the hospital with me. 3 o'clock in the morning, I could call them at any given point, and they'll show up to where I am. And what's funny is that when they get there, they don't know what to do, but my dad always seems to find a wheelchair and pop a wheelie in it. It's magnificent how he has that amazing task, but that was also one of the most important things he's ever done for me. So in front of the entire congregation, I just want to thank both of you for who you are and for what you've done for my life. And if it's okay with you guys, can we give them a round of applause for who they are? And now we'll actually get into what I'm going to talk about. So my name is JD Wiegand. I am the co-founder of Fenton Challenge alongside my dad and Ryan Maddock. This all started back in November of 2015. We went on a staff retreat where we were talking about what is the next big thing? What is it that the Freedom Center is really going to establish over the next year? And we started talking more and more about ideas of, well, how do we rent the building out? Or how do we get more involved with the community? Or how do we do this? Or how do we do that? And as we looked around at the staff, we realized everybody was already too busy, so we needed someone else to step up. My hand immediately shot up when I found out that I would be meeting new people. Love new people, love getting to know new people, love being able to connect with their heart on a one-on-one level. So without knowing that I was actually going to be put in charge of it, later on that night at dinner in front of all the staff, in front of all their family, my dad called out in front of everybody and said, JD is going to be the leader of our new thing called Fenton Challenge. And thus, I went on this journey. On December 6th, we did this. This was our release, December 6th, 2015, where I got to talk about Fenton Challenge and what it is that we were going to do. If you guys are interested at all in Fenton Challenge, please look us up on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, anything like that, and kind of connect with us as we connect with our community. But little did I know that that point right there would be a major defining point of who I would become for the rest of my life. Before Fenton Challenge started, I really didn't know anything about the secular world. The majority of the connection I had was, like Housewives of Atlanta. I kind of just thought that that was like what the world looked like. Or, what was the one I used in first service? Pretty Little Liars? Pretty Little Liars. That was what I thought the world looked like. Little did I know that I was entirely wrong. I would have assumed that the world, based on what I was seeing on the news with all of the hurricanes, with all the earthquakes, with all the death, with all the orphans, with all of everything, I would have assumed that the world was an incredibly dark, hopeless, just stagnant, uncreative, self-centered, destructive, depressing place. Because that's what I saw. That's what I was on TV doing. And when I was inside my inner circle of just Christians, I didn't realize that there was actually an entirely different secular world than what I was seeing on TV. When I started interacting with more of the secular world, I realized that they're way more passionate, they're way more caring, they're way more productive, they're way more hopeful than I would have ever assumed the secular world could have been. I mean, if we have the king of all hope inside of us, I would have assumed that Christians would have the most hope out of any people. But then when I started interacting with the secular world, I realized that they're just as passionate as we are. They care just as much as we do. That the only thing that really separates us from them when it comes to their passions is that they want to accomplish what they want to accomplish. And we as Christians want to accomplish what Christ wants us to accomplish. And that's really the only thing that differs. But they care just as much about what they care about as we care about. Throughout the past year, Fenton Challenge has been very active inside of its own community. We started off our very first thing with the health conference, which that was a major flop. How many of you guys went to the health conference? There you go. And that's what, Chris Swanson's over there. He went to the health conference. He spoke at it. There was maybe 50 people that showed up day one who didn't have a booth. And then day two, there was 0 people who showed up that didn't have a booth. But I still counted as somewhat of a success because there were 20 local businesses that I got to show up to interact with the Freedom Center and get our people with their people. And it's something that I'll never forget, just having all of them there. Next up, we had the Rave Run. The Rave Run, we had 280 people sign up to be a part of it. At one point, when people were walking in, their family to come and pick up all their packets and stuff, there was a soldier who came walking in who was struggling with PTSD, and I got to walk him around the building. I didn't know this at the time, but there was band practice happening in here. And all of a sudden, he hears a bass drop, and he just drops. I was like, what are you doing? Turns out he had been struggling with PTSD. But I got the opportunity to talk to him more about what it was that he was going through, and I got to connect more with his heart. Here's also me connecting with Mega. That is the entire staff at Mega Coney Island wearing Rave Run shirts the day of the event. Rocky, I think he's the only guy in the picture. He's the owner of Mega, and he sent me that picture day of just saying, hey, just want to let you know that I'm supporting you. And I don't think Rocky's a Christian. Then we had I Can Adult, which is where our young adults group and me together put on this event to really teach young adults how to adult. Tammy was there. She spoke at it about time management. My life's been changed ever since then. Thank you, Tammy. See? So, that was just one of those things. I got to connect with at least 10 people that I had never seen before. And this year in February 26th, we're going to be hosting another I Can Adult conference. And at this one, we're actually partnering with a local college in order to teach their people how it is that they can adult. So we're going to be getting, Pastor Carl and Matt Smith and just these amazing people of God into a room with college students who probably would never encounter God's love on a normal college campus. This is what our event looked like at the time. We had Cafe Ramo right there. Everybody was waiting in line. This is what the inside of our hall looked like. There was standing room only. I actually went on the news that morning at 7:10, I think, and we started at 9. And they asked me if there was still room to sign up. And I said, yeah. We got about 10 phone calls later that day asking if people could still sign up, and we had a lot of them show up. This is another angle of what that looks like. This was still just inside the hall. Then we did another thing called our Entrepreneurs Conference. It was actually the Vision Conference. We had 100 local entrepreneurs coming in here to learn from some of the greatest people at the Freedom Center. We had people like Chuck Russell, and again, Matt Smith, wherever he is. Both of them spoke there. And I think Chuck Russell's first thing that he put in the slide was something like, I am a God-fearing man, or something like that. I am in love with the King who is the Most High, or something like that. And I was like, oh, this is an Entrepreneurs Conference first slide. Good start. I didn't necessarily know what to do with it, because for me, it was just supposed to be an entrepreneurs conference. But to everybody else that spoke there, it was so much more. And then we move on to more of how the Freedom Center actually interacts with the community outside of just events. The first thing that we have is our B&I group. Here every Thursday morning at 7 a.m., we have about 60 local business owners who come together. They get to talk about what it is that they do. They get to talk about how it is that they do it, the rates, everything like that. And for 9 months, I was there every single Thursday morning, hanging out with these people, talking to them, encouraging them, being with them through life. And for 9 months, I didn't see a single one of them come to church. But then on the 9th month, I got one. And 3 months later, I got 15 more. It's just crazy. So as I'm starting to do life with people, this is when I begin to realize how much life change actually happens when you start doing life with people. Here's me getting a picture with, am I on the left to you guys? I am on the left to you, all right. I'm on the left. We have the police chief of Linden, who has asked us for future events to be a part of it. Dr. Wax, who, by the way, when I'm talking about people who care about their community, who love their community, she's top of the line, absolutely number one. She won Entrepreneur of the Year, and she bawled the entire time that she was talking about how much she just cares about the community. She inspires me. And then Rachel is her right-hand person, which is right next to her. And there I am at Santa Pictures. Yeah, that wasn't a picture that I wanted to take and never wanted it on social media. But if you look at my pants, you see how dirty those are? Yeah. Those were because I had just lifted a hay bale, forgot I was wearing white pants, and they got destroyed. Still hanging up in my closet, though, so I count that as a success. And I bet you're wondering why. Why is it that I do anything with the community that doesn't always result in somebody being saved? I mean, we're a church, right? We're supposed to be getting people saved. That's kind of like our main thing. So why on earth would I ever attend or be part of something where every day I don't get to give an altar call? The reason why is because of this. Time spent. When you're really looking at time spent, you have to look at what Jesus did with his time. Jesus, when he was on earth, yes, he did spend a lot of the time with the 12 disciples, got to know all of them. He had his 12, he had his 3, and he had his 1. But Jesus also hung out with the prostitutes, hung out with the tax collectors. Not only that, but he was actually ridiculed for it. Jesus, I'm going to set up a scene real quick. Jesus, he's walking through the streets, and there's a man who's a beggar, and he's crippled. And he's laying on the ground, and Jesus walks up to him, and he says, "Get up and go and take your mat." The man walks up, or stands up, probably for the first time, maybe ever, grabs his mat and walks away. And as soon as Jesus went on from there, he saw a man named Matthew sitting at the tax collector's booth. "Follow me," he told him. And Matthew got up and followed him. While Jesus was having dinner at Matthew's house, many tax collectors and sinners showed up and ate with him. And his disciples, when the Pharisees saw this, they asked his disciples, "Why does your teacher eat with tax collectors and sinners?" So first of all, I think it's funny that the people who are supposed to be the religious leaders of the group, the ones who are supposed to be really the ones that care the most, they're the ones that are questioning about why on earth would you ever help the hurt or the broken or the sick or the poor. And on hearing this, Jesus said, "It is not the healthy who need a doctor, but the sick. But go and learn what this means. I desire mercy, not sacrifice, for I have not come to call the righteous, but sinners." In the Christian walk, we haven't come to call the righteous. We've come to call the sinners. I think it's funny how often we allow ourselves to sit inside of our bubble. By the way, this is totally me that I'm talking to. Like I said, before I started Fenton Challenge, I had no idea what the secular world looked like. But I think it's funny how often I allowed myself to sit inside of a bubble, inside of my church camp, inside of my life group, inside of my one-time event, inside of all these different things that a church makes up. And I never actually got to experience anything outside of what that was supposed to be. Do you truly believe that while Jesus was on earth and he was spending time with all these prostitutes and tax collectors, that 24 hours later, the prostitutes weren't back on the street selling themselves? I mean, if he was with Judas for 3 years, and after those 3 years, Judas still sold him out for 30 pieces of silver, do you really think that all the prostitutes changed overnight? I can't lead myself to believe that. I have to understand that Jesus was hanging out with prostitutes and tax collectors because he loved them. That screen just freaked out in the back. If I call myself a basketball player, just a basketball player, and I devise the perfect shot, I do all the math for it, I do like stuff like that to make sure that my hand is in the right place. I come up with all these different angles of how it's supposed to happen, the power that's supposed to be behind my wrist. I do all the math behind it, but I never take a basketball shot. Can I actually call myself a basketball player? No, because I've never taken a shot before. In the same way, can a Christian who only resides within safe spaces inside their own circle, inside of what we set up as these, church things, if they only reside inside of those things, but they never actually encounter the secular world the way that Christ did, can we call ourselves a Christian? I mean, the entire term Christian, the I-A-N at the end of that, means to be a follower of, or to be like. So in order for myself to call myself a Christian, what I'm saying is that I'm like Christ, that I'm following in everything that he's doing, that I'm answering the call of what he's called me to do. Yet today, being called a Christian has become just like I believe in God, so of course I'm a Christian. I don't actually take it with the weight that it's supposed to have of no. When I call myself a Christian, I'm calling myself Christ-like. And I don't know about you guys, but I struggle telling myself that I am Christ-like. With the Pharisees, they were the ultimate ruling power over there. And for some reason, they couldn't see themselves as anything more than just being glorified people. They put oil on their heads so that way when they were standing on the streets and praying, they would look like they were fasting more, just because they wanted to look like they were better than everybody else. And one day, as I was working with somebody, I was talking to them just about work and about business and about how things were going, about their lifestyle, stuff like that, just regular, business things. And the second that I got them out of that setting of business, the first words that they actually said to me were, I just really don't like Christians. And to me, I was taken back by that a little bit. I mean, she knows I'm a Christian. She knows I work at a church. She knows that I've basically developed my entire life around Christianity. And the first thing that she says to me outside of a professional setting is, I just really don't like Christians. So I had a choice to respond in one of two ways. Either one, I could say, well, that's stupid. You don't like me then? And feel like she was attacking me. Rather than that, I decided I would ask her questions. Why is it that you don't like Christians? And she followed that up with, if that's what I thought Christianity was, then I would hate it too. She said they're hypocritical. They're mean. They're consistently doing everything that they tell me not to do, and then I go out and I see them doing the exact same things. How is it possible that you are any different from me? And as I was having this conversation with her, I realized, wow, you're right. If that's what my view of Christianity was, then I wouldn't like Christians either. When Jesus was back with all the Pharisees, he's having a conversation with them. And at one point, he turns to them and he calls them this: whitewashed tombs filled with dead men's bones. I realized after working with the secular community that for probably about 5 years of my life at least, I could have been called that by Jesus. I spent way too much time indulging myself, way too much time making myself try and feel like I was a Christian when I wasn't doing anything that Christ had commanded me to do. I wasn't dealing with the secular community. I wasn't being Christ-like. I had allowed the world to penetrate my heart and mind heart and mind, other way around. But I had never actually gone into the world to do anything about it. The Bible tells us that we're supposed to be in the world but not of it, and I found that I myself was of the world but not in it. And that was a dangerous place to find myself in. And so I realized that at one point, I could have been easily looked at by Jesus and called a whitewashed tomb filled with dead men's bones. I'm going to go ahead and kind of brace myself for impact on this one real quick. Don't worry about it. But do you know what it's called inside of a human body? And by the way, the church is called a body. Everybody in here, we're all part of a body. But do you know what it's called inside of a body when there's a cell that continuously takes in, continuously grows, continually doesn't do what it's supposed to do and split off and do everything that cell's supposed to do, but instead it just continuously grows? Do you know what that's called? Yeah, it becomes cancer. It's what it is. And I'm not calling anybody in this church cancer. I could never do that. And I would never question anybody in this church's salvation either. If you believe in your heart and you say it with your mouth that Jesus Christ is Lord, then congratulations, you're saved. Way to go. But I don't know that I could look at myself and even call myself that I'm Christ-like. I've read this specifically for the past year, just looking at myself, asking myself, have I become more Christ-like every day? Or am I still just a whitewashed tomb filled with dead men's bones? My biggest fear in life is getting to the end of my life and having regrets about what I did. When I graduated high school, I walked out of there relieved that I had a 2.0 and that I had gotten done with it. But at the same time, I realized walking out of there, I was probably the only Christian that I knew of. And how is it that I could look at myself and call myself Christ-like if I was around the same people for 4 years and none of them got led to Christ? I was a whitewashed tomb filled with dead men's bones. Do you know what can happen when you have passion? We've seen what can happen when there's loads of money being shipped out somewhere, but there's no passion behind it. How many of you guys know of that person on the bottom? Samuel Pierpont Langley. Raise your hand if you've ever heard of him before. We got 2 over here, 3, 4, 5. We got 5 people in 6. There we go. We got 6 people in the room who've ever heard of Samuel Pierpont Langley. How many of you guys have ever heard of the Wright brothers? I'm guessing everybody in the room has probably heard of the Wright brothers, the ones that discovered flight. Samuel Pierpont Langley was in New York this entire time. He was the head of the Smithsonian. He was given governmental grants to do everything possible, given the brightest minds, could pick from any pool that he wanted to, given at any time with any budget that he wanted. And he was the one that New York Times followed. He was supposed to be the one that discovered flight. Everyone had already pegged that when the time of flight was supposed to happen, that Samuel Pierpont Langley was going to be the one that had discovered it. The difference between Samuel Pierpont Langley and the Wright brothers, though, is passion. The Wright brothers, having only high school degrees, owning a bicycle shop in 1903, were the first ones to discover flight. They worked extra hours so that way they can make extra money to buy the pieces necessary for this plane. But because they had a dream of making the world better and making it more accessible to the entire human race, that's why they accomplished it. Samuel Pierpont Langley had a dream, but that was just to be the one that discovered flight. And the second that the Wright brothers discovered flight and a newspaper had taken a picture of them actually flying, Samuel Pierpont Langley, rather than taking the information that he had just gotten from the Wright brothers and making it better, decided to quit. He was done. Because he didn't have a passion anymore. When we look at the world, we need to have this amazing passion. Piano girl, where are you at? Thank you, piano girl. Just so you guys know, I still have 15 minutes left. You're probably still going to go right up to the line. But it's not going to be 15 minutes over like somebody else did the last Wiegand that I know. I may be scratching my nose to point in the general direction, but my nose didn't actually itch. We need to love this world with a reckless abandonment. Know me. Out of everybody that I know, there's one person that I'm pretty sure the only negative thing he's ever said was against the Lions, and that's because they've lost 9 straight playoff games. Other than that, I've never heard a negative word come out of that man's mouth in the back. Mark Hubbard. He has taught me how to look in a eternal aspect. With everything that I do, with every word I say, with every motion that I make, I need to know that there is a greater eternity in store than what I'm seeing here on earth. Right now, this is the only time that we can see, but there's an entirely separate thing that happens at the end of our lives, which is where we go to heaven. The Bible tells us that it's a straight and narrow path. And I don't know about you guys, but I I know that it's straight and narrow, but I at least want to make the line longer. I want to know that while I was on this earth, that I led people to Christ. I want to know that I made a difference. I want to know that I loved. I want to know that I was Jesus to the people that were around me. I say this consistently at the end of every single announcement video, and as always, I love you guys. And I say it kind of humorously, but I do love you. Everyone in this room. And I honestly can't call myself a Christian unless I do. It's not a forced thing either. I truly love all of you. I don't have any quarrels with any of you, and everybody sitting in this room right now is my family. And I can say that because of what you guys have done for me and my family over there. We love you guys. We wouldn't be here if we didn't. In order for me to be Jesus to this world, I have to love it. I think Bono at the 2006 prayer said it best when it comes to being with people. He said, God is in the slums and the cardboard boxes where the poor play house. God is in the silence of a mother who has infected her child with a virus that will end both of their lives. God is in the cries heard under the rubble of war. God is in the debris of wasted opportunity and lives. And God is with us if we are with them. God is with us if we are with them. I want to be with them. I was at camp, a Christian camp this past year in June, and I heard the speaker say that there hasn't been a revival in my generation in 20 years. 22 years old, there hasn't been a revival from the moment that I was alive in America. I want that to be different. I want to be the start of a revival. I want us to love the way Jesus loved. I have a dream of that being something that comes to pass. Not just a dream, but something that's actually going to happen. We did a sermon series on expectation and prayer, and I have an expectation that everybody that lives in Fenton, Linden, Holly, surrounding areas is going to walk into this building at some point and have an opportunity to give their life to Christ. I don't think everyone's going to give their life to Christ, but I want everyone to at least have the opportunity to. I want to know that I made a difference in this community. That when I'm talking to people, I don't just have an alternate purpose of making sure that they get saved, but that I actually genuinely love them. I made the point earlier about prostitutes. When Jesus was hanging out with them, they probably still went off that night and prostituted themselves out. That didn't mean that he didn't love them. That didn't mean that there was conditions on his love. That meant that he loved them. People don't want your morality. They want your love. People don't want your money. They want your love. When it comes to an orphan, they're not looking to have a handout. They're looking for parents. Isn't that right, Tammy? They're looking for love. And everybody who's separated from God doesn't have the love of a parent, the way that the true love should be shared to them. I pray every single time this morning, or not every single time on Sunday mornings, God, let them just be embraced with the love of a Father that loves them so much. God loves each and every one of you, and because of that, I do too. We love because Christ first loved us. I have no other ability to respond to anybody in this room other than through love. When you look in Acts, it says, I don't have any possessions to give you, but what I do, I give to you now. Get up and walk. The world, again, isn't looking for your possessions. They're not looking for your information. They're looking for you. They want you to be part of their lives. They want you to help them. They want you to listen to them. A pastor gave a sermon about how everybody has this golden key that they're walking around with. And they're trying to consistently give that golden key to other people to let them into their lives. Yet sometimes we have so much of an agenda that we don't even allow them to give us their golden key. We never take the time to actually listen to them to see what their perspective is. We never actually take the time to love them. We go in with an agenda of either you're going to do this or I'm not going to do this. When in all actuality, I couldn't care less what they do. I have a responsibility to love them. And as Christians, we have the ability to love. We love because Christ first loved us. So I have a question. Can we get the ushers up here? Are you guys willing to offer yourself? Usually at the very end of these things like youth and stuff like that, we have a question of, are you guys willing to donate to what it is that we're doing? I don't care about your money. I really don't. If I need money, I'll figure out a way to get it, but I don't care about your money. I care about you. I want your heart. I want your hands. I want you to love the world the way I do. Why don't you love the world the way Jesus does? We have a responsibility as Christians to do that. And so many people in this world walk around never having actually experienced any type of true love because they never encountered God. I don't want anybody that I walk into contact with ever have to feel like they didn't encounter God because they encountered me. I have a responsibility to love, and I love that responsibility. David Grant was a missionary to India for over 50 years. When he was 8 years old, there was a missionary that came and they showed him, this is like what the skins of the snake looks like, and this is what the tea tastes like, and this is what the map of the country looks like, and blah, 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 and this is India. And at the very end, the pastor got everybody so hyped, and he said, now are you willing to give? And at the very end, there was an offering plate that went around, and everybody got a chance to put money in. But David Grant, at 8 years old, didn't have any money to give. He was 8. 8-year-olds don't have money. So instead, he took the offering plate, put it down on the ground, and he stepped into it and raised his hands. And for 50 years after that, he devoted his entire life to India. At this moment right now, I'm willing to devote the rest of my life to Fenton. It's not as big as India, but it's just as good a ground. We have a responsibility to love. As Christians, we have a responsibility to love. Right now in front of you guys, there are these red cards that are in the back of the chairs. If you want to join me on this journey, I would encourage you to grab that red card out of the back of the chair and fill it out with just your name and email address and a phone number. Because we're being consistently asked to be part of events that are happening around Linden. I mean, you saw the picture of the Linden police chief. He's asked me to be part of several events coming up this year. There was somebody else. They're doing a first responders thing in August. They want 20 volunteers to be there. Fenton Challenge consistently is hosting events. I want you guys to be there. And the world's looking for you. Are you willing to respond to the call? I'm going to go ahead and have the ushers start handing out the bags. Now, if you guys want to fill it out, please do. I would love to have your guys' email addresses so that way I can go ahead and contact you guys anytime that there's an event that's coming up. Yeah. It's funny. You know those people that you just work on for so long? The ones that you just love unconditionally, and there's never really like a whole lot that you get back, but you just love them, and you just do. Today, one of the people who I just love so much, it's just amazing. She sent me a message having only been here once, saying that she was watching our live stream because she knew that I was speaking, and her response to me was just, hey, I just want you to know that I love you. Same people told me they hate Christians 4 months ago. The same people just told me they love me. I want to make a difference in this world. I want to know that when I left this world that I made a difference, that I impacted people with the love of Christ. Beyond that, I really have no goal. On Monday night at the men's ministry, we got asked the question of what is your goal for 2017. A lot of people came up with, like I want to increase my finances, I want to lose weight, I want to blah, blah. My only goal is to get people in this building. I have 0 other goals besides getting people saved. There's nothing else in my life that matters. Nothing else. So, can I get my altar workers to walk up here real quick? We're going to go ahead and close out in prayer because they're done collecting these now. And I just want to thank you guys from the bottom of my heart that if you fill out the card, or even if you didn't, just thank you guys so much for being here, for loving on us, for loving the community. This church body is amazing. So many amazing people in it. So many amazing things that you guys accomplish. And I can't thank you guys enough just for being part of it. You're amazing. You truly know how to love Freedom Center. And I thank you so much for that. All right. Father God, right now we just thank you so much for who you are, for who you say you are, for what you say you're going to do, for the love that you've poured out on all of us who don't deserve it. With Jesus hanging there on the cross and people spitting on him and shouting at him, the same people who just said that they loved him, Jesus looks back at them, hanging there, beaten, bloody, bruised, destroyed from head to toe. Could have called down thousands of angels and wiped out everything, and been made whole right there. Instead, Jesus saw a greater opportunity. He looks at God, and he says, "Forgive them, for they do not know what they do." And on the third day, he rose again. And because of that act right there, I'm now able to go to heaven. I thank you, God, so much for that sacrifice that you laid out there, being separated from your son for 33 years so that I could spend eternity with you. We just pray that today, that as we move forward, that your heart would become our hearts, that your words would become our words, that your love would become our love, that in everything we do and everything we say and everything we are, it's all because of what you've made us to be. We ask for your heart to dwell inside of us right now. In your holy name we pray. Amen. So, if you need prayer, the altar workers are up here. They'd love to pray with you. Actually, I know all of them. Yeah. Live long and prosper, Freedom Center. Actually, I know all of them. Yeah. Live long and prosper, Freedom Center.